Right, so let's start recording. I'm going to put myself in the other corner. Okay. Right, so we're going. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm Adam Steele and this is Hot Pole Studios. Today we're going to make a song. Sounds, it's just making a song, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you step by step how to record in Reaper, making yourself a drum track using a virtual guitar amp, virtual bass amps, how I go about tracking, making sure even a demo sounds decent enough, and then levels for DI tracks, all that kind of stuff. So the reason that I'm doing this song today is I'm going to have an upcoming video about different types of strings which I'm going to need a song for, but doing this today will help me have a song or at least a set of riffs and different sections that I can then go back and re-record without having to spend that day thinking about something creatively. I can then allocate brain space to being technical and scientific. The other video that I'm going to use this for, and I might just use these DIs straight off for that, is I'm going to show the difference between a guitar cabinet being wired in series and wired in parallel and see if that makes any difference with the same speakers sound-wise. So I'm going to need some guitar parts. This is my Les Paul in Inverness green, which is why you can see it on a green screen being kind of see-through. I've got my trusty jazz bass behind me, and I've got Reaper up in front of us. So if you've not seen my Reaper getting started video, go ahead and watch that, because that will explain a lot of the how to get your ACO drivers set up, get them record monitoring going, and make sure you can actually hear sound out of Reaper before we go through any of this creative stuff. So, first things first, we need a blank song, which we have, unsaved project, so I'm going to save this as something and then just create a subdirectory for project to make sure that's ticked. Live video riff creation. Not the best naming system on this one, but this is just for me, so I usually tend to be much more scientific with naming systems when I'm working with clients. This is just off the top of my head. So the first thing that I'm going to want is a guitar track. Now I'm using an Audient ID4 today. I'll try and show you that on camera. So there's my ID4 that's hooked up. So it's got the main speaker outputs going into my mixer, which I'm using live. If this was you at home, you'd probably just have the headphones going straight from the headphone output, or you'd have these going straight to your studio monitors. In my case, I've done it a bit differently because of how I'm doing this to show you. And the DI input on channel 2 is plugged in to my guitar. So, if I play something, nothing is happening. The first thing to do is hit record on the track. Second thing is pick the input that the audio is actually going to. In this case, it's analog 2. And then we're still not going to hear anything, but we'll see a level, so we've got to turn on our record monitoring. And yeah, there we are, we have some levels. I can hear some background noise on this stream. That's because my mixer that I'm using for the live stream, because I'm doing this one from home, I don't currently have any acoustic treatment in here, and I've not got a compressor gate set up yet for the analog mic signal. So when I do that in future streams, the audio quality from me will be better. The audio quality from the ID4 will be the same. just so you know in advance. So what I'm doing is, if I play with a pick, I'll probably want to turn the DI gain up a touch on the DI D4, because what I'm looking for is a level that's roughly at -18, roughly. So as I play a kind of medium to strong chord, I get a solid -18, which means that I've got quite a lot of headroom. So if I then stab, you see how that jumped up to -6 on the levels? And I've still got a bit of headroom to spare. In an ideal world, I'd use even less, but maybe if I was using one of my studio DI boxes, I'd have a bit more headroom, but I've found that at this kind of level, it can introduce some noise if you track with too low a level. So, first thing to do is add an effect. Now, the first thing is this guitar is not in tune. So rather than go out and find an effects pedal tune, if I use a plugin called Retune, which comes with Reaper, and I've got record monitoring enabled and everything so I can hear it, I just strike an E, which in my case appears to be E flat because I've been, or D sharp, because I've been playing in E flat quite a lot. This whole guitar is going to be out because of temperature. I've recently moved house, which means that this thing's been bumped and bashed around. So let's make sure this is within a couple of cents of being in tune. The guitar still sounds pretty naff, but close enough for jazz for now. As it is, because it's an unprocessed signal, let's just push the volume up. So, there we are, turn the headphone volume down. So we can now hear the guitar level fairly loud, but it still sounds horrible because there's no amp. And even if I put it on the nicer sounding neck pickup, these pickups are bare knuckle juggernauts, by the way, in Zebra. So they sound like this. Now, the first part I tend to write, because of my writing style, is generally kind of the heavy riff part. Whether it's kind of a medium gain or a high gain song, I kind of think almost Dave Grohl-like in my writing style. I'm not saying I'm anything like Dave Grohl, but I tend to think the way that he does, that the riff is the backbone. So the first thing I'm going to need is an amp that's got some grit. Now, I tend to use the Thermionik amps, and I'm trying to think, how do I feel today? Let's go British. Let's go JCM 800. Now, we can already hear a lot of hissing. I'll turn the output volume down on this, because this will have made things sound louder. If I hit this with a chord, that sounds terrible, but that's because we have a preamp and a power amp, but we don't have a guitar cabinet. So the next thing, before we even change any of the dials on the amp, because how are we going to know how the amp sounds if we've not got the full story, is we're going to add wall of sound. If you didn't already know, I have my own speakers for Wall of Sound. Wall of Sound is a virtual cabinet modelling program, and I am one of their capture masters, which means that I have the privilege of working with them, so that the cabinets I have, most of which are by Zilla, are my favourite being, at the moment at least, the Big Beast. Let's link these together. I can now use my own cabinets at home without upsetting the neighbours, which is always a bonus. Now, so let's start with a good old SM57. No distance from the cab, slightly off centre is usually my kind of thing. Little bit of overload, which is what you tend to want, I find, on rock and roll kind of sounds, is a little bit of the mic just kind of going whoa. So how does this sound now? Yeah, that's got a bit of rock and roll about it. It's very British, very pokey. Now, I am dealing with some latency here. Let me quickly just change my latency settings if I can. Low latency. There we go. So, don't request block size in Reaper. There we go. So that's now set as I would have it on the guitar cabinet. I mean, if I was being fussy, let's unlink these. Put the pan of both in the center. Because by default you get 2 channels. That's interesting. That sounds different to me than it did. Maybe that's all in my head. It's definitely louder because of the pan law. But let's turn the guitar output volume down a little. And let's change one of these microphones to be a Sennheiser 421 right in the center, because that in the center mixed with an SM57 slightly off is kind of generally recognized as one of the big rock and roll standards. Let's maybe not have the overload on there. Nice. So let's maybe take the gain up a touch just to give it that slightly more hot-rodded sound. Take the bass up, the middle up, and the treble up, and the presence up, because the way that Marshall amps tend to work, I tend to find that, and let's turn the saturation up, which is the equivalent of turning the power amp up without actually giving us any more volume. Marshall amps, I find, tend to work nicer when they've been cranked a bit. I've not even got a boost pedal in front of that, and that's got that kind of... that kind of big, fat... So I've not got any clipping going on, apart from the virtual clipping, which is what I want, and that sounds huge. Okay, so next thing is, now I've got a sound, now we still need to make a song. I've got my bass behind me as well, but what I tend to do when I'm writing, not all the time, but what I tend to do is write the guitar part first. So we're going to need a heavy rhythm part like we've dialed in. Going to need a solo. It doesn't have to be a difficult solo. I don't have to work out something that's all kind of... Don't need any of that. And then it just needs to be... So a good bit of attacky, melodic stuff is probably where I'm going to be headed with that. And so on and so on and so on. I'm going to need a breakdown section later in the song that's got a bluesier kind of sound, and one that's got a clean kind of sound, for which I'm probably going to use the neck pickup on this with the coil split. Ooh, not on this amp by the sound of it. It's not a bad sound, except for that's the the mains in here seems a little bit dirty, and I don't have a power conditioner to hand, so I might have to investigate that. In the meantime, we're going to need a tempo now, and we're going to need some kind of drum beat, so I'm going to turn off. I'm going to name this rhythm guitar left, because that's something I'll come to later on, is that I tend to double track rhythms, even for a demo, because it makes the demo come to life. So let's hit record on that, so that's not recording right now, and let's get some drums going. So the drums for me are Stephen Slate drums from SSD 4. So let's look at the Chris Lord Algae presets, because they're a really good starting point. I mean, all presets, yeah, but if we're writing a demo, this is a good start. So let's go. That was weird. That shouldn't have gone off. No, okay, so now we've got headroom on the output. I'll have to find out why that went off. That's really weird. The Chris Lord Algae drum set from Stephen Slate Drums is what I would use. Yeah, that was weird that I had to hit the mic. Anyway, I wonder how long that's been like that. Strange. Right, so I've got a big snare, big crash. Let's go for something rocky. So let's figure out a tempo and a bit of a riff. Just a rough idea of a riff now that we've got a drum kit. So let's just think. So I'm going to start with a single note Rage Against the Machine-y kind of thing. I'm just going to hit record for now, not to keep, but just as a kind of a notepad. I'm thinking, well, even though I'm tuned to I'm tuned to E flat, but let's just say that I wasn't, just for simplicity's sake. I'm going to be playing something that's in F sharp, kind of single notey with some chords, which is very Rage Against the Machine, because Rage Against the Machine is that kind of. So if I take that F sharpy thing and just go. Okay, so I got into a bit of a groove there. So the tempo was. So where you see the BPM is over here, if you hover over it, it says tap. So if I just tap that at that speed, that's giving me 140. Let's slow it down a little bit and make it a little bit more sludgy. So with my double lock on, let's make that. That's told us that's 140, so let's make it 135. And let's draw in some drums. So what we want to do is take a time selection. Now I never start at 0. This is a good thing to know. Never start at 0, because then you've got nowhere to go if you want to put an intro in, or if you need some pre-silence, or if you need anything like that. Don't paint yourself into a corner. So if I start from 17 bars in, why not? It's 16 bars in at bar 17. We've got our drum sound, so what I want to do is add, just for this, just for writing, 2 bars in. Let's make it 4 bars. Now we've got the drums selected and we've selected our time selection on the top bar. Now if we go insert new MIDI item, that should appear right here. Now, bless you, I think. Mickey sneezing. If I then double click on this MIDI item, this brings up the piano roll. Now C2 should be the kick, yeah. So I was going... So I'm leading the first beat with ba ba ba. So let's see what happens if I go ba 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 ba, gap, snare. So that should go ba ba ba. That's half the speed I need, so let's snap these. These should be snapped to the bar, by the way. So it should be ba ba ba. Da, ba ba ba, da, ba ba ba. Da, t, t, ba ba. Ba, da. So that should be, if I play that back, ba 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 da, ba 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 da. So ba 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 da, ba 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 da, ba ba da. So I need the snare for this beat to be on every 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So on ba 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 da, ba 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 da, t, t, ba. Ba da da t, ba 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 da. So in my mind that now goes ba da ba 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 da ba ba da t, ba 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 da. Okay, and then again this is making a drum groove for me is fairly essential to getting a riff to groove right. So let's start this with a crash. Wherever the crash is gone, that'll do. So I'll throw that crash on there, and then just gonna throw some. I'm gonna throw these on the closed hats. I usually do open hats, but I'm just gonna do these closed. Tick, 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 tick. Oop, no, and then I'm going to right click over a few and control click to copy them over and over. And I'm going to make the last one an open so that that brings us in to the next bar. So that should go, oh, oop, that should go, if I play from just before that. So they need to be louder. Okay, so here's a neat trick in Reaper. Now we've got a drum beat going. It's not the best, and I would not consider this yet to be release quality, but this is a backbone. This means we've been filming for just over 20 minutes, and I've been talking the whole way about getting a guitar sound and everything, and I've not given myself time to lose the impetus. So let's make sure the playback rate of that guitar piece that we made is full rate. If I drag the end of a drum loop or a MIDI loop of any kind in Reaper, it just loops it over and over and over and over again, which is great. So I've got that F sharp thing. Down. So if I turn my guitar volume up, let's see how that sounds. So it maybe is a little bit slow now at 135. Let's bring it back to 140. And yes, it is beginning to sound like the middle of Bomb Track by Rage Against the Machine. Not something that I did intentionally, with that kind of, even though it was something that popped into my head. It's kind of getting that way, so we'll just have to make sure it doesn't get too far that way. So let's hit record and just come up with a few variations on the riff at this point. A 1, 2, 3. Right, so that developed into something there. So as I was playing, I felt the need to change to a new section. So I think the first bit is going to be the F sharp. So that's kind of just gone from so I'm thinking bass-wise, because that's how I tend to think, even though I'm writing the rhythm guitar. It feels different on a rhythm guitar. That I instantly felt the need to hold on that. Which, of course, when that's double tracked in stereo, is going to give it a nice big width, and is hopefully going to help to highlight any differences there might be between serial and parallel on guitar cabinets. Because between the bass heavy chug chug and the chord openness with the full range of that should be a nice complex part of a riff, hopefully. So let's hit record and see if we can't get a solid couple of bars we're happy with. Ba, da, ba, ba. Nope, let's go again. 1, 2, 3. It's not the riff I was thinking. And a 1, 2, 3. Getting there. I think I'm slightly out of tune at this point, so I'm just going to check that by opening retune up again. G strings never quite sound right on a Les Paul to me, but hey. Ooh, I wonder if I can sneak that in maybe a second time round. So again, let's keep this simple. Okay, so I went a little bit off-piste there as my mind was trying to think of some way to close that second section. So let's think of... Right, so I'm gonna go. So I'm gonna extend that section by 2 bars by holding on that B, well, B flat in this case. I have no idea what that is, do you? Okay. Right. So, weird. Let's try and record that second section. So that's where we want to split the bar. And see, if I right click on record and go auto punch selected items, other one, time selection auto punch, if I hit record from way back here, it won't overwrite my original part of the riff, but it will come in. It will have recorded underneath, so I can make my edit fine-tuned, but it will start the block that it's going to put in right where I want it to be. So it's kind of an auto punch, which is useful because it means I don't have to stare and hit record just in the right time. I can have my hands on the guitar. So watch this. Right, so that needs a bit of a do-over because I didn't quite get the last bit right, and the Yep, that open chord sounds a little too gainy right now, but hopefully when that's stereoized, that will become clear and really give you a nice balance. So. Okay, I did a bit of a dive bomb there to go back into the next bit. Depending on how the song goes, I might actually retrack the next bit, or I might copy paste it, depending on what it's for. If this is just a backing track for the channel, I only really need certain sections of it. It's one of those, that's what I tend to do with the backing tracks and songs that are on my channel, is I'll not quite finish it, but I'll make sure it's a 4 or 5 minute piece so that I can use it underneath as a bed, or I can then go back and kind of re-record bits and use the template that I've made to then do it properly. So those are 2 heavy bits. Now, this is where we try and make it sound big. How long is that section? Reaper's telling me it's 29 bars, which in minutes and seconds, 50 seconds. By the time I've got a blues section on the end, well, blues-ish, and then a clean section, and then got the riff one more time for a big finale, this is going to be a 2-minute piece. So let's move into kind of beefing up mode. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click on the guitar channel, duplicate it, because that then is a nice shortcut. I'll take record off on one of them and rename this new one Rhythm Guitar Right. I now have 2 channels with identical information on. If I drag a box over the stuff that's been recorded and remove it, let's put the drums at the top at this point. I like to have drums, then bass, then guitars in my order, just because it's good for the mind. And then all the effects have been copied over. All I have to do is pan the one I already recorded to the left and pan the one that I'm about to record to the right. And suddenly, this should be... so that will come out with the guitar on the left now. Wow, my playing was really off. Let's just take snap off for a second and see if I can fix that, because if not I might have to go back and re-record that, because that was pretty off the bar. The whole thing seems to be ahead of the bar. Maybe the interface is trying too hard to compensate, or maybe it's me. I do tend to play slightly ahead of the bar. So it's gone a bit late there, so I seem to have fallen into time at that point. So let's just move this back to the bar. Way ahead of the bar. Yeah. This whole bit was a little bit ahead as well. Okay, so that will do, because that's close enough to the bar now that I can now track against it and track to it, and my tracking quality should be improved because I'm not trying now to creatively come up with something and fill my brain space with actually being creative. Now this is just almost a robotic, mechanical, can you copy? So this is going to take me a few goes, but have a listen to this now that it's not coming out of one ear. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so not quite good enough technically, but on the right lines. I seem to have remembered the riff, which is a big plus. So let's hit save and record and try again. Actually, let's hit undo then record. Let's try recording with listening to the start of the bar. Two, three. Let's just have a listen. Am I doing a chuggy chord there? Yeah, I am. I'm not holding that fifth on as a suspended. So it's definitely a... Okay. So let's just listen back to this together. Now that my hands are off the guitar, make sure it's all roughly in time. All ahead of the bar again. I wonder if there's some sort of compensation issue with the ID4. Maybe. Probably not. It's probably just me. Yeah, I just can't play in time. Split it there and put these chugs together. So now I get a lock into the beat a little bit more, so that needs to go back a little bit. That should probably be dun, 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 dun. That was closer there, which means that this one is out of time. Cool. Now, here's something for you. A lot of the potential critics on this video are going to say, oh, but you could have done such a better job if you'd taken the time, yada, 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 yada. But in the 45 minutes so far that I've been doing this video, the main kind of heavy riff is now written. So all I need to do bass-wise is kind of copy this, get a decent bass tone and get that underneath it. And then maybe extend this with a softer, bluesy, cleany kind of section. And in what will probably be about an hour and a half, let's just take record of his rhythm guitar, this will be done. Or at least it will be a thing. It will be a completed idea, which means that I can then go back at some point and actually record it properly, but then maybe with real amps or whatever. Then this is not the time to be a creative fusspot. This is the time, whilst I have some sort of creative spark and about an hour in which to do this before I have to go out and play a gig, then I now have the chance the chance to make this happen, make this a reality, make this a thing. And striking while the iron is hot is such an important thing. A lot of guitarists especially tend to lose sight of that fact, and they're like, oh, it must be perfect, it must be perfect. But if you've got the attention span of some sort of god and you can go for hours, great. But most of us can probably do an hour or two at a time. And I'm also explaining my method to you at the same time. And it's not yet distracted me, although it might get there. Right, so let's see what the bass sounds like on its own. Doesn't sound too bad. This is my jazz bass with a John East preamp in it, the J Retro. So let's get some effects on this. So firstly, let's tune it. Now if I try and tune this, it's not going to do anything, and the reason is retune isn't designed by default to be able to track bass. If you change the window size, suddenly it can pick up bass. The notes need kind of the smaller the window size, the more accurate the tuner, but the smaller, or at least higher up the range it can pick up. So that's not a bad DI sound. Level coming out, peaking so that the -18 kind of level is what we want. Now let's have a look at using TSE Audios Be OD. This is something I want to do a video about at some point, because this is the new BOD version 3, and compared to BOD 2 this sounds so much better. Let's listen. If I hit drive, bit more high, bit more presence. Maybe if I turn the low end down on the bass itself and turn it up in the plugin. Cool. Now let's turn the input up on it and turn the level down, because I like quite a lot of drive on my bass. I'm guessing, yeah, I need more input. So this is on active mode, good. Now that's sounding like a bit of a monster. If I get a bit more high end. Presence? Starting to sound a bit nasty. Low end back in. Using the low end on the BOD plugin and turning the bass down on the actual bass seems to be useful. Now you'll probably be thinking that's too much gain, that's too much treble, that's too much presence. I tend to find that once you're in the mix with heavy guitars, a lot of it gets lost, so some of it's compensating. Now let's try a level check. sounding pretty decent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my iLock and I'm going to use a Slate Virtual Mix Rack plugin. A second. Technical difficulties. I'm actually quite surprised with myself that I've not used any Slate digital plugins yet. They're usually my go-to, but it just so happens that I've only used amps and drums so far. So, Virtual Mix Rack. What was that? Something went... Never mind. Okay, so this is sounding pretty beastly on its own. Let's get FG Stress on the case and put the London preamp after it. Turn the ratio down to 3:1, see what we get. So let's just make sure that the detector's not affected by low end or that presence peak. Hit dist 2 for more distortion. So let's turn the output down a little bit, quite a lot in fact, and turn the input up a bit. Right, so a bit more input. Let's make the release quicker. Maybe a bit less input, a bit more output. Cool, this is where I'd probably use the tape machine after this, but that will completely screw up that'll screw up the latency as I'm trying to track. So this will do for now, having quite a bit of drive on a virtual channel just to give it a bit more saturation, just makes it a bit thicker sounding. So that's got some nice low growly grit and quite a lot of clean low end in there. So let's see what happens. Let's close the mix window so I can see what's going on. See what happens when we try and track this. Record, here we go. Already managed to forget the riff. This is why you got to work quickly. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so not quite, especially the second half. The sound seems to work. It may be a little louder than the guitars, which is fine. I can always turn that down after I've tracked it. But the yeah, let's do it. And you'll notice I'm picking very hard on the bass to really make that definition come through. That's something if I go... that's not going to cut it, but really digging in with that's how you get noticed playing bass in a mix. And that's how you hold a mix together. Compression can sort the rest of the levels out, but if you're tickling it, or you're hitting it, that makes all the difference. Now, one more time. Cool. One more time. Hip, hip, ba-dum, ba, and a 1, 2, 3. Gets the riff wrong. Bum, 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 catches a string. Let's get this done quickly. Dun, dun. Okay, managed to fluff up the second half there, so I'm just going to select the second half and just drop in for it. And again. And a 1, 2, 3. Lovely. Right, so let's just go bass only for the next section, because now I can go. And then have a nice bluesy mid-gain solo come in. That'll be nice. Inspirato strikes. came out of nowhere. Like it. So I need to make a little note of that. This is the first time I go up, I go 4, then 3. So first I just need to make a note of 4, then 3. Then the next time I go. Then 3, 7. Hold on 4. Okay. So let's unhit record on bass. Let's put the bass down. Now let's get some more guitar going, and this is going to be our clean sound. So just for the purposes of recording the clean part, let's now copy what the bass was doing. So if we screen small, I really should have plugged the proper mouse into this today. Never mind. Start to get a numb bum. So if I shift click these two tracks and duplicate them, make sure they're at the end, and just delete everything that's on them. Now I've got a clean left and clean right. So let's just okay, so if I hit record here, there's way too much gain. So what we need is a cleaner amp. So I'm going to keep the cab I've got, which is Wall of Sound. I'm going to delete that JCM 800, and I'm going to add in another Thermionik amp. What have we got that's super duper clean? This is where it gets a little interesting as to what I pick. Let's go with a Mesa Mark IIc Plus, which is actually one of my favourite clean amps. So we're on the rhythm pickup with the coil tap. Let's turn the gain up to hear something. So I like this to be on the deep setting, less mids, more presence, probably a lot more saturation because I want the power tubes to be doing something. let's look at the EQ, turn that on, because this is one of my favourite things to do with the Mark II C Plus, is really lift the bass and the treble out. Let's just check our overall levels. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, so I'm going to change my chord phrasing and go up. Because it seems that doing the clean stuff down here doesn't fit the song, but that seems to fit much more nicely. So let's go from a little before it. So there are 4 times around here. And now 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I think that works. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to just delete that second channel. I'm going to duplicate that first channel. And then just turn record off and pan it the other way around. Delete the audio that's in it. And then just hit record from the right place. And that means that we've suddenly got the exact same amp on both sides. So that when I hit record, and I'm not having to look at all the settings again and distract myself. I'm just ready. Cool. The one more thing that I'd like to have on here is some sort of solo piece. Nothing particularly complicated, but I'm going to use good old Les Paul. So those clean guitars were probably a bit loud. So I'm going to take them down a bit. I'm going to copy one of the rhythm guitar channels again, because that's got quite a lot of gain. And actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to copy one of these two clean guitars. I'm going to get ready on it. And I'm going to change the channel in the amp from clean to rhythm. So I'm going to take it off deep, turn the bass way down, turn the output way down, probably turn the gain down. In fact, I'm going to go to lead channel and take the gain way down. Yeah, so I'm going for a very much a kind of a low gain, maybe a bit more bass back in there, quite a bit more mid. Oh, that background noise means that using single coils is a no-no today. And let's take the saturation down, see if that cleans the amp up a bit. And here's another thing that I'm going to do, is I'm going to have a plate reverb on another channel that is from Verb Suite Classics by Slate. Verb Suite Classics being my favourite of all the suites of verbs. And I'm going to find... oh, what have I got in here? Let's go with the 480. Let's just stick with the plate that we start with. That is the A plate off the Lexicon 480. Just send a little bit to that. You hear that little bit of something now? So, let's get more treble, more presence. That seems to be acceptable. So let's have the solo come in when the clean guitars come in. Well, that's completely uninspired so far. Let's get some more gain in it. That's a bit more like what I was thinking. Reverb. Let's try that again. A bit more volume on it. Still needs more volume, probably less gain at this point. Let's try that. starting to feel it a bit. Let's just try high shift. Here we go, liquid solo. Getting there. And a 1, 2, 3, 4. So close. That might be it. That felt good. Let's listen back to that. Yes, I'm happy with that as a solo. That's something that started to come from the gut a little bit. But after an hour and 20, we have a heavy section, we have a bass only section, we have a clean section with a solo, and essentially we have the bare bones of a song. So what I've done there is I've done virtual amps, virtual cabs, virtual drums, virtual everything. RIP headphone users. And now I can then listen back to this, decide if I want to actually make this into a song, use these sections, maybe reamp them for one of the videos that I've got coming up, maybe re-record these with different strings, different guitars, different what have you, and I now have some sort of ammunition to use for the channel. So it doesn't have to be difficult to write the bare bones of a song, you only make it difficult on yourself. I can now come back to this at another point with a fresh head and maybe make this into an arrangement, embellish parts, start to add new sections, cut sections as a different mindset, and I don't have to then obsess and then not finish it, because that's something that I'm particularly terrible for. I probably use the same 3 or 4 songs as the background music on the channel for a good couple of years now, just because time's gotten away from me. So now I've got a new piece of ammo to use in the artillery. So thanks for watching. Time to put on the magical end screen, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later.